Today, I'm building a tiny animal shelter completely from scratch, and I want to turn this simple setup into something that looks realistic, neat, and satisfying by the end of the build. I begin by preparing the ground and setting up the base where the shelter will stand. This first step is simple, but it's also one of the most important parts of the project because the entire structure depends on having a clean and stable foundation. Once the base is ready, I start placing the support sticks one by one to create the main frame of the shelter. I take my time here because the frame needs to look balanced and properly shaped before I move on to the next part of the build. As I keep adding more pieces, the shelter slowly starts taking shape and the basic structure becomes much easier to see. Even at this stage, it's satisfying to watch the build go from an empty base to something that already looks like a miniature project in progress. Next, I move on to building the fenced area around the shelter. I add it section by section, making sure it fits well with the frame and gives the whole setup a more realistic appearance. The fence makes a big difference because it starts to turn the structure into an actual tiny animal space, instead of just a simple frame made from sticks. Little by little, the build begins to look more complete, and each new detail adds more character to the final design. After that, I work on the entrance and make a few adjustments to the overall structure. This part helps the shelter feel more natural and more functional, almost like a real miniature farm shelter designed for animals. I keep checking the shape, the spacing, and the balance of the build so that everything looks clean and properly connected. Sometimes it's the small changes that improve the project the most, especially in a tiny handmade build like this. Now it's time to focus on the roof, which is one of the most important parts of the entire shelter. The moment the roof starts going on, the whole project begins to look much more realistic and much more finished. I place each piece carefully and keep adjusting it until the top of the shelter has the farm-style look I'm aiming for. This is also the part where the transformation becomes really noticeable, because the build goes from looking like an open frame to looking like a proper shelter. With the roof in place, I move on to the final details and spend some time refining the overall look of the structure. I check the frame, the fence, the entrance, and the roof to make sure everything looks neat, balanced, and natural from every angle. These finishing touches may be small, but they're what make the build feel complete instead of unfinished. The more I refine the little details, the better the final result starts to look. And finally, it's time for the most satisfying part of the project, placing the animals inside their new tiny home. This is the moment where the shelter truly comes to life, because it's no longer just a miniature structure. It actually looks like a complete animal shelter built with a purpose. Now the build is finished. What started as a simple base has turned into a full miniature shelter with a frame, a fence, an entrance, a roof, and a clean handmade look. The final result is simple, realistic, and really satisfying to watch from start to finish.